Добрий день,
Welcome everybody joining us today at the Media Center Ukraine. We are beginning our work on the day 233 of our fight for our freedom. Once again, I would like to thank and turn to our men and women in uniform and congratulate them on today's holiday. We thank you for our freedom, lives, independence. We are proud of every one of you. We are about to start talking about the situation in the Kherson region. Online, we have Serhii Khlan, the Kherson Oblast Council member. Welcome, sir. Welcome, we are from Ukraine. Kherson region is Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. Yesterday, the Gauleiter of the Kherson Oblast mentioned that, as we understand it, that between the lines they are suggesting that the Ukrainian forces are on the move, and they appeal to everyone to leave the territory of the region as soon as possible. If possible, could you comment on that, if you think it's sensible? Indeed, yesterday, the day began when the self-appointed governor of the Kherson Oblast mentioned that he appealed to the Russian Federation to make sure that they guarantee the transportation and living conditions for those wishing to leave the Kherson region. Effectively, he asked the leadership of the Russian Federation to evacuate people from the Kherson region. We understand that there is no possibility to get people evacuated. They are talking about something which effectively is deportation. They understand that they will not be able to retain their position in the right bank of the Dnieper River. The counteroffensive that we saw last week and something we are witnessing now in the northern direction is indicative that the Ukrainian army is moving forward in deoccupying the region. This particular appeal is testifying of the agony. The only thing they can evacuate is the Gauleiter at the settlement that was liberated from our forces, who was lamenting about her role in the referendum. Now she was forced to evacuate to Herson. The evacuation that Mr. Salda is announcing is evacuation for the traitors in the region who are under the attack of the Ukrainian forces. These are the people that the occupying forces want to evacuate to Russia. Against this background, I would like to state that all the appeals of the collaborators about the so-called holidays in the schools, in the right bank, Dnieper, something that they announced on the 6th of October. And on the 15th of October, what they announced is the holiday for schools, but in both left and right-hand bank of the Dnieper River, they're now trying to get the register of the children that they want to transport to Russia. I appeal to all the Ukrainian citizens not to fall for this forced deportation that has been announced by Mr. Saldo. And there was a feedback from the Russian Federation to the effect that they will make sure that the transportation will be secured, but I'm saying this is a forced deportation. We also saw the collaborator Stremouso, who in his self-styled manner said that this is not deportation. People, children, will improve their health. We saw such a health rehabilitation when children were taken to the Crimea, and these children effectively have been deprived of their parents. I call on everybody who is able to leave the occupied territories to the Ukraine's free territories Please do this, otherwise try to hide yourselves in safe environment. Everything will be all right at the end of the day. When we talk about the occupied territories of the region, the occupied territory of the Kherson region officially is more than 107 square kilometers, including 20 settlements in the Borislav region. This line of deoccupation is effectively in the north of the Herson region, from Davidov Brod right to the Dubchane, from one bank of the Inkulets River to the Dnieper River, straight ahead. The pocket that our forces have encircled the Russia's forces means that the line of confrontation is somewhere in the vicinity of the Davidov Brody. We are looking forward to good news from the Kherson region for this native land of ours to be deoccupied. In the deoccupied territories, if there is an information available, what the local people are saying, what are their stories as they were living under the occupation. The situation, both humanitarian and military, is very complex. All the crimes committed by the Russian forces, the police is trying to investigate and begin the investigation, tracking down all the crimes in the occupied territories. Sooner or later, we'll see the list of all the crimes published. Unfortunately, we can only state that people were suffering from the Russian occupying force. Today's major task is to provide electricity, and we are working on that, including all the services to provide the electricity supply to those localities, including the mobile connection, the internet services in the deoccupied settlements. Thirdly, humanitarian component, meaning that the food and water is provided to the local population. Humanitarianly, the situation is very complex. The water and foods must be supplied and will be supplied. This is what we are doing through the local administration and through the volunteers. Fourth point is helping people with the building materials. We have a lot of problems here because people want to be provided with the slates for the roofs of their housing to be able to live through the winter period. People are categorically objecting to getting evacuated. What they are saying is that we have prevailed the occupiers, we will prevail the winter now that we are taken care of by the Ukrainian armed forces. The main thing is that we are living in a free Ukraine. We have a question from the floor. Irina Goncharuk, Ukrinform. According to your information on the deoccupied territories or liberated territories, how can the humanitarian aid be transported there? Have their demining been completed? And what kind of humanitarian aid is needed at this point in time? Indeed, you can get to practically all the settlements except the 5 settlements that have been liberated recently. We are now doing the cleanup operation very close to the front line. As for the rest of the settlements, volunteers can get there, and they're getting there. The military administration is taking care to make sure that everyone who wants to get there gets a permit to the liberated villages. These permits are issued by the local administration. Such permits are granted to the volunteer organizations. What we are in need of is, first, medicines, and people are turning to us with their requests. Secondly, water, and thirdly, building materials. These have been provided by the volunteer organizations, and we are also helping them. Another question, if I may. You mentioned that the deportation is likely to take place or has been planned, and you advise people what to do. We are all aware about the threats, and my question is about the other category of people staying in the occupied territories, about the men. Perhaps there are not that many of them, people who are eligible to be drafted, the men who have not left the territory for one reason or the other. Is there a possibility to leave those regions? It is clear that we are not in a position to point particular ways to leave that territory because we are being overheard by the enemy. But if there is such a possibility, or there may be some other algorithm of behavior for such men to avoid mobilization, and perhaps those who have been mobilized should surrender, what your advice would be? What kind of algorithm can you publicly announce or prompt in public domain? As for the possibility to leave the territory, the men living there don't have such a possibility. You have to apply for such permits. It should be done online, so effectively people cannot leave those territories. The door-to-door searches are now taking place, and they're trying to identify men in the first place. The forced mobilization in the occupied territories in the Kherson region, we don't see that. The collaborators state that there will be no forced mobilization, but they're now announcing the creation of the so-called volunteer units. And what they say is that only people wishing to join them will be drafted. And of course, they are in no position to organize such volunteer units. If there are collaborators wishing to join them, you see, you cannot imagine that they are willing to be cannon fodder. My advice as of now is for men in particular of the draft age, and I am staying in contact with them. People are hiding now. People are advised not to leave their houses, not to respond to the calls of the occupiers. Once your housing is searched or you are illegally detained, it's better to stay inside, to restrict your circle of people you talk to, because there is a well-developed system of noting and giving informants the ability. Should be waiting for the territory to be liberated. But unfortunately, there is no other recipe. Sir, we appreciate the fact that you have found time to join us. We've been talking to Serhii Khlan, the Kherson Oblast Council member. Our next briefing takes place at 1400. We will be talking to Maria Mesentseva, the member of the Ukrainian Parliament, the head of the permanent delegation of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. We'll be talking about the historic decision to recognize Russia as a terrorist state. Stay tuned.